trying to be the son of a rich man, I mean, it was whipped out of you very quickly.
Really?
Oh yeah. It was
Wow.
stamped out completely very quickly. I was like, and it gave that instant value for labor.
Hey guys, how you doing today? So welcome to another beautiful episode of the Billionaire Habits Podcast with me, Stephen Akintayo. And today I have a very good friend of mine in the building, Mr. Tunde Okoya. How you doing today?
Pleasure, always a pleasure to meet you and to see you, my friend. Always a
Welcome.
pleasure.
How you
you.
doing today? How's
Very
family?
well.
How's business?
Oh, great. Excited to, be speaking with you because I know I'm going to take away some nuggets.
No, you don't. You don't have it.
No, I mean, to be honest, there's always a very healthy exchange. And
Yeah.
every time I always come away smarter and wiser. No,
Okay.
but that's a fact. That's
Okay, so
definitely
that means it's mutual. We'll both learn.
right. Absolutely.
But for you, have you always known you'll be an entrepreneur? We say the
definitely.
thing runs in the family.
Oh no, definitely. I've always liked the art of commerce, the art of exchange, and of course, my father being a very great inspiration. Ever since we were growing up, I mean, from primary school, our holidays were always spent working in Eleganza departmental stores, then as it was called, in Idumota.
Wow.
And our job very early on was it's just like a typical shop right now, but the
Yeah.
difference is, in order to reduce shrinkage, pilferage, the customers were not allowed to take their bags to the till.
Yeah.
So our job was to take the bags after they've made the purchase and take it to the cash point
Wow.
for them to pay. And it was very interesting. We got paid.
Wow.
So getting
At
paid,
what age?
5, 6, 7, 9, 10, so we did it all every holiday.
Wow.
And I just love the energy of Lagos and Idumota, the trading, commerce, exchange. So yeah, it was just great affinity for that energy.
So that just told you this is what I'm going to do.
Definitely. And we also had a father that always inspired you to want to go and be in business. I mean, most earliest stories you heard about the life of an entrepreneur was when he was young. And he said he was in class and they had a teacher, brilliant teacher. And every time he was teaching in class, and he would look at him from the back as a student, and his clothes were not the best. He had the collar was faded, torn, and everything. But of course, they said, I mean, no disrespect to people that teach. I mean, I doff my hat to people that teach. I mean, it's a calling, And he said he made up his mind very, very quickly that, no, that's not the life I want. And he said, by contrast, he will go to Lagos in Idumota and he will see the big traders of back in the days.
Yeah.
Mostly those traders from Ilorin, the Titiloyes and all of them.
Yeah.
And, they will be sitting down, the big regal splendor abbadas with all the designs and everything. And he said, yeah, I mean.
That's what I remember.
And, he was a tailor. So
Wow.
Ojuku was one of their clients.
Senior.
Ojuku Senior, actually, was one of his clients. And
Wow.
they would do all those big regal, like, what I was like, yeah, I mean, there was no brainer.
Wow.
So hearing those stories growing up from very young, hearing those experiences just made it very easy
to say
entrepreneurship and commerce was.
But growing up, will you say that the experience gave you more hunger or made you more comfortable? Because sometimes people say people who are from rich background are not as hungry Because obviously you are an exception because your hustle is real, you know. But will you say is a myth and or what really created that exception for you? Because a lot of people from wealthy background just want to live the life and have fun.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that was definitely not it, because right from inception, the hunger to succeed was very, very important. I mean, in the household, one very clear ethos that was drummed in was one, humility
Yeah.
was one of the things that we were taught very early.
Wow.
To be humble,
Yeah.
to be hardworking,
Yeah.
to be dedicated, honest,
Yeah.
and trustworthy. So if you ever, it's not like these days when you have Instagram and everybody is posting whatever they like. If you had any inkling of even showing off or trying to be the son of a rich man, I mean, it was whipped out of you very quickly.
Really?
Oh yeah. It was
Wow.
stamped out completely very quickly. I was like, and it gave that instant value for labor, for work, for to be an entrepreneur, because it's you're absolutely right. I mean, the prayer has always been to be self-sufficient and not to be dependent on someone else's hard work. You have to make your own way in life, and privilege comes with responsibility. So the more privileged you are, the more challenged you are, the more responsible you are. The biggest problem is that you always just tend to challenge yourself all the time, and even when you make achievements, they pale, and that's always a challenge. And at times you never really have the time to take it in and say, well, probably have. But it's always has to be the next mountain, the next hill, the next project.
But why did you go on your own? Somebody else would have just wanted to, work with Popsy and run the family business. You just went on your own, and I am Tunde Okoya. I'm starting my own empire.
Well, to be honest, it was I've always said something, and it's always drummed this thing into all the kids, that what matters the most. It's just like when Igbos have, or even old traditional people in commerce and trade. When you're under the tutelage of someone who actually takes you under their wings, and they actually train you.
After a while,
you take your freedom and you go and start your business. So for me, that was the way it sort of turned out to be. Under the group, I was like group managing director. I was in charge of all the factories.
Wow.
And we were doing very well, extremely well. They still are doing very well. And what I learned, the entire experience, the entire knowledge is worth, you can't put a value to it. You just can't put a value to that. So after doing that for over 20 years, I thought, okay, well.
So you worked with your dad for 20 years?
Yeah, over 20 years. And
I know. Okay. You paid your dues.
Yes, so exactly. So I thought, well, I paid my dues. Let me go and try and see if I can put those skills to work for me. And we thank God. We give God the glory.
How many years now on your own?
Over a decade.
Wow.
Yeah, over a decade, well over a decade. So, I mean, I still help out where there's stuff to be done, where there's a need, but focus full-time on my own business. So it's actually well over a decade.
Wow.
So, and in that process, you needed to start reinventing yourself, redefining yourself. When you're a CEO in a top corporate organization, and then the structures are there, the capacity, the manpower is there, it's a totally different kettle of fish when you
When you start, you are bootstrapping.
yeah, you're
kind of.
bootstrapping exactly,
Yeah.
and you probably don't have access to top talent
Yes.
and
Yes.
and brand,
Yeah.
and so
And now you have to bear your own name.
now you have to bear your own name. You have to do everything from the scratch
Yeah.
and build build your business all from the beginning, and that's the challenge. That's the whole idea of entrepreneurship, and so you either enjoy that journey, and or if you don't, and if you're doing it only for financial returns, it's obviously you're going to burn out very quickly, and it's not going to you're not going to enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is enjoying that journey, trying to make a difference, solving a problem as entrepreneurs should, and being innovative, constantly thinking out of the box, constantly challenged and finding ways around it to solve that same problem. I guess that's the thrill, and that's what keeps you awake every day, keeps you in the office, and and swinging for the fences.
What was the first business or the first product when you left and started your own?
So the idea initially was to continue with the production of the cooler boxes in one of the factories, which we did for a while, but we weren't getting the scale that we could get at that time in terms of returns and everything, because it was the whole idea was scale, economies of scale. And since we weren't getting the scale, so we did. We had someone come into our office one day. He wanted insulation, and of course, I mean, the whole concept of the thermal boxes to insulate it, but he wanted it for a house, not for a picnic box. So he had a site somewhere in Niger Delta. It was for an oil and gas company, and so he just said, "No, just come to site, and you come and put your installation into it." Of course, we did, and it turned out to be a very profitable business. But the entire execution and the way it was done was completely wrong. So we went back and sat down in the office and thought about it and said, "No, I mean, this can definitely be done in a much more profitable and a much more efficient way." So from our research, we now got into structural insulated panels and so on and so forth. So that was the first business we did. And from there, we got into doing that for people that in the agricultural sector, cold rooms, cold chain. And then, for the financial service industries, when they first started and they had their ATM kiosks, and we were deploying mobile ATMs for them all over the country, universities and everywhere. We must have done over 500 deployments back then.
Wow.
And the telecoms came. When the telecoms came, they wanted base stations for telecommunication shelters. They had the old technology then before the new RF system that doesn't require any installation. So we did that for the oil and gas. For the telecom sector, and that was also very good. So constantly, we were changing to market demands and market needs, and we found out that we had a versatile product that could be adapted to so many different applications. Oil and gas, construction. So it's essentially a building material. But our driving factor from the beginning, the vision was to be a commodities company. To trade that was why our company was called Lands and Grant Commodities. We wanted to be in the fast-paced business of selling and buying commodities. And then at the end of the day, when you think about it, manufacturing and industry is trading at the end of the day. The manufacturing and the trading that counts.
That's true.
So it's just that we're trading in a different way.
Fantastic. So, for you, I mean, what will you say? Is it easier? I mean, you've seen it all. Is it easier? Because I've seen situations where people leave their parents' business and then start on their own. And people say, why did you leave your father's business? Why did you go start your own? And we've seen situations where people stay in their parents' business. Well, it was because they took continue from where their parents stopped. That's why it was easy for them.
Right.
We're having a new generation of second generation entrepreneurs. In rare cases, you have third generation who have come in after their dad. What will you say could be the right template, whether for parents watching this or for children who parents own businesses and they're likely to take over from their parents?
That's a very difficult question. Like you said, you now have a new generation. This is the second generation. Ours is probably the third generation, the millennials. And what you find out continually is that, so let's start from millennials first, right? You find millennials that are, very opinionated, self-driven.
Yes.
And if you look at most of, even in the US, most big firms or most of the successful entrepreneurs we know now, you would hardly find them crossing to a third generation, taking over from them. I mean, look at Elon Musk, for example, or Bill Gates, or any of this so-called very, very popular entrepreneurs that we know now. Because millennials just have a mind of their own. They're not going to be, they usually always prefer not to be in the same business. Of course, there's some few exceptions. So that's the third generation. Now, second generation, which is perhaps our generation, we tend to be a bit more submissive. We kind of always have that deference for, our parents and the family legacy.
More
continuing
humble.
more humble, trying to continue the family legacy. And the way I see it, maintaining the legacy of the business is multidimensional. You could do it continuing with the conventional business. Or you could do it just redefining your own path, but still achieving the same results and still maintaining the same legacy. I mean, take, I don't know if Dangote will be a good example, but take Dangote, for example. I mean, Dantata, they were perhaps into some sort of trade, but is completely diversified.
He really
so I guess turn it around. So what I'm saying is, you could actually diversify the business, still being in industry, but just maybe a different industry altogether. Of course, you would always stand on the shoulders of those that went ahead of you. You would not exactly be bootstrapping right from the beginning. You would always leverage on the experience, the goodwill, the brand that had gone ahead of you, of the previous generation. But I think that by and large, it's always an individual call. But the most important thing at the end of the day is to maintain relevance in the economy and in the industrial sector. So
fantastic, and I agree absolutely with you. For you, where do you see? And by the way, congrats on the new expansion, Grant and VGS.
yeah, thank you so much. Thank you very much.
You want to share a bit about that before I ask the question, which is on where do you see this whole thing in the next 50 years for you?
Yeah, I mean, Grant and VGS is continuation of the vision we've always had to provide building materials that are environmentally friendly and to develop a real estate space, enable Africa catch up with the rest of the world. The biggest problem we have is we are not going to catch up with the West with the old conventional system. So we have to think out of the box. And there's so many building systems. So Grant VGS is utilizing composite steel in order to achieve high-rise buildings within a record speed and a more cost-effective way, and to ensure that the building is green. on an industrial scale. So if you wanted to develop really quickly and you needed to catch up with Dubai, for example, you're not going to go the same route. You have to leapfrog. So what we think this technology affords us is the ability to leapfrog and to develop
a lot of particular
high-rise, Lagos, Nigeria, even for low-cost housing to be a cosmopolitan city, because we know that rural to urban migration is going to happen. Space, for example, a place in Lagos is very difficult, so you always have to go vertical. So that is the whole idea. We started our factory already producing insulated panels that provides the envelope for the building. So the next phase is to provide the structure, the skeleton, the stanchions, the beams, and so on and so forth, in order to achieve high-rise buildings in record time, in an environmentally friendly manner, to provide housing for all. I mean, we all know what the housing deficit is. Construction is one sector that drives the economy, cuts across everybody. Real estate, even up to the mama put selling food at the gate, the lawyers, and it brings everybody. It engages the entire economy. I mean, there's no wonder why Dangote is the richest guy in Nigeria now, selling cement. So that's the target. Of course, we have a still sector that is not fully developed, but that's where the challenge is, to try and see how we can change and, well, not change, but innovate in the building sector. McKinsey did a study and they said the construction industry is one of the least innovative of all the entire sectors.
Wow.
The way buildings are done these days is the least innovative, least competitive. Very clearly, McKinsey reports shows that very, very clearly. And we have to think about it. We're moving into a digital age. Everybody's talking about AI. What does that mean for the way we run projects, for the way we handle buildings? And for us, we're taking a bet on offsite construction. It's not the same as just putting up a bunch of containers and stacking them on top of each other. We're talking about industrial scale, construction of buildings. So in order to do that, the skill set needs to change. The entire business model needs to change. Where you're a developer and you're building one floor after the other, waiting for people to pay before you continue the building, that model perhaps might change. People that off-take the buildings perhaps want to have a reset and say, okay, well, I want to see this building go to 10th floor before I pay. So those sort of mindsets need to come into play in order to change the entire construction industry, the way it's currently being done.
But for, let's say, a 25-story building, for example, how fast will this technology build?
10 months. 10 months. The simple reason is that in a conventional building, you always need to cast, wait for it to cure. After 20 days, 25 days, they shutter and then move to the next floor. With a composite steel structure, you don't need to do that. Right after you cast, you can take, you don't remove the formwork. The formwork stays in there. And it's got up to 2-hour fire rating with the concrete included. So you can go up very, very fast. Even the Burj Al Arab, the hotel in Dubai, it was concrete up to a certain level. But in order to complete the very, very top of the building, because they couldn't take the concrete all the way to the top, it would dry quickly before it got there. And they had to use composite steel structure for the remainder of the building. And even they are changing now. The project in Saudi Arabia, the Neon project, a lot of them are not going to be done in the same way. They're looking at constantly pushing the envelopes, looking at new technologies, looking at more volumetric buildings, looking at so many other types of model. And where we talk a lot about global change, and to be honest, if we don't change the way we do things now at the moment, it's going to catch up. It's going to catch up for the next generation, even if it's not for us. So people buy into values these days, especially the millennials. And if you want to, hopefully we're looking at a time. Well, this housing deficit is so big, people probably don't care now. But eventually you want
about
to
20
find out.
million housing deficit.
Yeah, eventually if you want to buy a house, you want to know what kind of Energy Star ratings it is. But trust me, when you can see there's a recent discussion about increasing electricity bill again, it's going to become so expensive. People are going to be forced to think about efficiency in a building. This building, how much do I need to cool it down?
Yeah.
Cooling, of course, being the highest cost of energy in a building. And yeah.
Cooling. So in the next 50 years, what do you see for your company?
In the next 50 years, I envision a company that would be at the forefront of modular off-site building technology.
Okay.
In order to increase
In
that.
Africa? or
In
Nigeria?
Africa, definitely in Africa. And in order to also reduce the housing deficit using cutting-edge technology and innovation. That's where we want to be. And we want to do it in an environmentally friendly way that will be a win-win both for the company and the environment at large.
Yeah.
What problem are we going to solve? We're going to solve, hopefully, the housing deficit. By solving the housing deficit, you're creating a citizenry that has more stake, both in their country and in the economy. Because one thing we realize is that if people don't have title or property or ownership, they're always going to have very little stake in that economy. So home ownership is vital. It's a right. Brazilians, you could see they're new in Brazil. They almost made home ownership a constitutional requirement.
Wow.
Because they try to take people from the slums into creating housing for them. And they're not stupid. They did that in order to create a middle class. Once you can create a middle class, then you can create more disposable income. And then, of course, if people can buy more. And I think that's where we need to go in this country.
And that sounds like what Lee Kuan Yew did with Singapore. In Singapore as well, housing is a human right.
Absolutely, it drives the economy. It drives every sector of the economy, and we have a generation of Nigerians that are coming. The millennials they are just unbelievable. I mean, I have so much respect for that generation and what they're achieving. They're breaking all the rules. They're rewriting the rules. They're not asking for permission. They're taking it.
Yeah.
And I think we need to learn a lot from that generation. And you find out that they thrive most where there's very little government regulation.
Yeah.
Because it's more egalitarian. It's based on your performance. It's not based on who you know. It's what you can do. It's based on your talent. You can't buy talent, right? And that's a generation that should inspire the entire country. These guys are not asking for permission. They're not, And you can see the results in the entertainment industry, in the music industry, in the film industry.
Fantastic. I mean, for you, what will you call your quotable quotes for success? How do you define success?
That's a very tricky question. Success. It's multi-dimensional. I mean, financial success without strong family is, it's essentially useless. So for me, success is being fulfilled, both first of all within the family, and the family unit, and then external financial success. But unfortunately, we are all caught up trying to chase 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 our tail, I'd say, because at the end of the day, if you achieve financial success without a family and then you end up with kids that have not learned the values, and you've not been able to help them develop in their lives and into the individuals they need to be, then what's the purpose of that success?
Very true.
So yeah, that's
So for you, success is holistic. Money
you.
plus family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And being most essentially, building a company that solves a problem.
Yeah.
That not just a company that is chasing the bottom line.
Yeah.
It must be able to achieve a change in society, essentially. If it doesn't do that, then there's no point.
If Chief Razak Okoya were not to be your dad, what, in 2 sentences, how will you praise him?
Oh,
Were not to be your dad, and
Oh.
you're just a neutral person, but you have enough insight as to who he is, what he's been through, how he's come this far. And by the way, he did his 85th
birthday
recently. You guys were there.
Right. That's a very, very interesting question. If he wasn't, I would say this is someone that, people always talk about the success of him as a real estate or industrialist, but the very little aspect of what people really always fail to appreciate the most about him is that he is someone that is extremely innovative.
Wow.
Innovation drives through every fiber of his
And
being.
he didn't go to university.
No. He has a very popular saying that he always says every time in Europe. If you don't mind if I'll say in Yoruba now, interpret. He always say, òyìnbó mu tea, èmi mu ẹ̀kọ, omi gbígbóná kan náà la jọ mu. In other words, is that a white man drinks a cup of tea, I drink pap. It's the same hot water at the end of the day. And so what does that mean? What does that mean for the company is built? You bring in a machine, and the manual and the people have said, this is what it's going to do. And then he looks at it with the engineering team and says, how else can we make it better? How can we be more innovative? Take, for example, the picnic boxes that we started off with. In Europe, the primary purpose of a cooler box was picnic.
Yeah.
But in Nigeria, it became something used for the distribution of food. And that was so integral to its success in Nigeria, even beyond other markets and in Europe.
Wow.
And it's always been like that for him. It's always innovation, always thinking out of the box. He never got into a market that was purely run of the mill, another me too. Every business he got into he had to be the one creating that market.
Yeah.
And effectively a niche market. And he had to compete on the innovation. And before the people caught up, maybe another 5-6 years, it's off to another product. So he would never come in and commit and compete in a product that was just commodity.
Yeah.
He always found a niche. He always found a separate way to exist out of the box, always thinking out of the box.
Did that influence how you two evolve? Because, what you're doing has nothing to do with what, your father's business is doing.
No, you're right. It has nothing to do with cooler boxes, but that's, in the sense that a cooler box is a small product, small plastic product that regulates temperature.
Mm-hmm.
I build a house that regulates temperature. And so I always say that I make a giant cooler, he makes a small, I make a giant cooler. But yeah, so the same thread, but the same concept of not being in a market where you're purely competing only on efficiency and price, but you're competing on your own rules,
Yeah.
your own product, very little competition, and then that gives you a bit more room to pick your price.
Very powerful.
Right.
For you, what are like 2-3 principles or quotes that you've used in entrepreneurship thus far?
To be honest, the life of an entrepreneur is always a daily struggle, especially when you're building a new business.
Yeah.
And one thing is one, a strong faith in God. You can't achieve anything without it.
Yeah.
The
that's
G
very
factor,
powerful.
the G factor is always very
That's very
important
powerful.
because at the end of the day, the race is not to the swift,
Yeah.
or
The
to
battle
the
to the
wise,
strong.
but
Time and chance.
and God blesses all. So the God factor is the most important. God makes the luck for you, where everything is down, where the chips are down, where you don't know where that solution is going to come from. He appears. And for me, so the God factor is very important. And apart from that is trying to build a business that would impart on society and every stakeholder. Okay. So if I were to tell you what other, I get a lot of motivation from a lot of people you speak to. Like Cosmos Maduka is a great inspiration, and the way his generation and my dad, the way they've been able to turn things around, and they always say that I started with this X amount, and then he got into this factor. So biggest one word for me is that it's always a God factor in business.
Well, I think that looking at the empire, the first generation has done, your generation, one can't but wonder, is there a third generation coming? Are your children also going to go into entrepreneurship?
Oh, yeah, they have no choice. They're going to, of course. So the difference between their generation and my generation is like I never took a paid job in my life.
Wow.
So it's always, for me, I always think that that's always been a bit of a downside because I could never really understand the other aspect of what it was. So in their case, I've encouraged them, yes, to
take a paid job.
Take a paid job somewhere else. Understand? I have a son who's in financial sector. He works in New York. He's currently a business analyst in one of the biggest banks. So he's going to go into investment banking and hopefully wants to go and set up his own thing. So I didn't even bother trying to convince him or persuade him to say, "Oh, come, you have to come and join the business." I think things will take their natural course. People would always find what inspires them the most, what keeps them awake. Because they said if you find a passion, then you'll never get paid for the rest of your life. Because it's something you're always going to enjoy, it's something that's always going to be interesting for you. And so I think, so that's my take on it. Obviously, it's essential to look at the exit. What legacies you want to build? Is your business going to go beyond and transcend you? For me, those questions right now are still a bit far off. Hopefully, when we scale and pivot well enough, then who knows?
But we never get to the end, do we? I mean, this is a journey, it's not a destination. So I doubt if there will ever be a time where you don't feel like, yes.
Actually, that have actually built a business ground up in society, you always find different career paths and people with questionable characters, and you can't even really explain the source of the wealth. And even those that can't explain the source of the wealth happens to be the ones that are showing the fake it till you make it scenario and giving the impression that life is all about. I saw one of your podcasts where the guy was very interested, like everybody trying to own a Rolls Royce. I mean, for goodness sake. You know, why is it instead of trying to own a Rolls Royce, can't you own an AI lab, for example, for goodness sake? Try and be the person who owns Creative Hub. Try and be the person who owns a tech shop. You know, and why would you put so much capital in luxury? I think it's something that is really, really a curse for the black man. It's not just a black man, a black man everywhere. I was watching a show on AI and chips and drams and everything. And this brilliant guy was giving the lecture on why they needed to take China out of the most advanced chips and leave them with the current chips, which they finally now gotten over to achieve the AI result. And in that class, all you could find were Chinese people. Half of everybody in that class were Chinese, for goodness sake. I was like, why is Africa in this conversation? Yeah, it's sad. But when there's a music video, I mean, you see us dancing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, right? That's fine. But we also need to push the envelope in terms of science and technology, especially at this age. And the strangest and the most important is that we think that we need everybody to know it. We don't. We only need 1% of the 1% to know it. If 1% of the 1% know it and we can discover the 1% of 1% and support them, we will get there. I mean, the Caucasians are not collectively smart. But the difference is they're able to find the 1% and they're able to support the 1% that eventually create a better life for everybody. But collectively, they're not that smart. Let's be honest. So until we find the 1% that are the geniuses and we put them on the pedestal as geniuses and we make them role models and we support them and we develop them and we build them, we would never develop.
Are you the first child of Chief Razak? Okay.
Oh, no.
You are number what?
In the football field. In the football team. They always say that you can't count. They said people don't count children.
Are you sure you don't know your number now?
I'm not, you can't, okay, for my mom, I'm the second. No, third, actually.
No, but in the entire team, you're not sure you know your number.
My number in the entire team. I would take a pass on that. I'll come back to you on that.
But interested. For people who are watching and are like in your shoes of my dad, wealthy entrepreneur, and I'm struggling because I've had this conversation with a lot of first generation entrepreneur, battling with how their children are. One, they almost always want to be different. I don't want to be like my dad. I don't want to do my thing. If someone is watching this as and is in that position, successful parent, struggling to understand where to fit in, and what is your advice for them?
Where the kids are trying to find a way to fit into the business.
That is the kid watching you now. He's a child of a very, very successful entrepreneur and is struggling to have his own voice. Like you have found your voice and created your part.
I think like our generation, it was with our parents. You literally, if you're lucky and you liked what they did, it was fantastic. It was great. But not everybody likes.
Yeah.
So people, even amongst my students perhaps had a different vision.
Yes.
Perhaps they had a different dream to pursue.
True.
Well, fortunately for me, I never had any other vision. I wanted to be that. I wanted to be doing what he was doing. So I had no problems whatsoever. I probably wanted it to be done slightly differently than the way it was done, yes, but definitely I had the same ambition. So for someone who perhaps has the same vision and wants to continue in the legacy, I say what matters the most is for you to find what makes you happy. If you find what makes you happy, if it doesn't make you happy, you're going to be miserable for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You need to find that you're happy and comfortable in the decisions you make. And don't second guess yourself. If you have the drive, the inspiration, the natural inclination to do a certain thing or pursue a certain dream, go do it. You just have to go do it. Because if you don't, you're going to live miserably for the rest of your life. And I like this Frank Sinatra song that says, I did it my way.
Yeah.
You know,
I did it
I did it my way. And that's I mean, at the end of the day, when you're 80-year-old or at your deathbed and you look back, and then you can say that I did it my way.
Is that your song when you're 85, like your dad just did? And said,
I pray and I wish that at 85, and if I were to write my obituary today now, that I would want to say that I accomplished everything on my own. I did it my way, and not knowing I did it my way, and I was happy, and I could live in my skin, and I could sleep, doing it my way and achieving it. Because I mean, at the end of the day, that's what every single person, that's what drives them. If you're an entrepreneur, the resilience, the pain, the suffering has to account for something. And you're not going to do it if it's only financial. You're going to get tired and you're going to walk away. You're going to go do something else. I mean, all the Jeff Bezos of this world, and that's the key thing. Got to do your way. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say we've had a great conversation, and I'm happy having someone like you because, like I said, there's a whole new generation of young people who are mentally rebellious and are trying to figure out. And I think the way you've done it is a model for such people to study. Because you're building your own empire, massive stuff. I mean, you're just quiet. A lot of people don't even know much about you, right? This is probably the biggest, platform that will help a lot of people to hear more about you. And you've done a non-confrontational, just do your thing and you're just pushing your stuff. And the way you're going, definitely, we already have, perhaps a greater than Razak Okoya in the making.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, and thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Like I said, it's always a pleasure coming here and being with you. And I honestly mean that. I remember the first course I attended, the program where you had lectured, and I always come up with a lot of nuggets. I mean, and it's very clear that you are definitely one of the brightest spots in this generation, torch in this generation. And the values that you espouse are very key, very important for those coming behind. I know that you're a man of faith, and that's very important.
Thank you.
And I think that this generation needs to learn and believe that, the G factor is the most important.
Yes.
Yes. And when in Nigeria, my dad put that sign there, Oluwani Shola. My younger me, like, what does that mean? When I got on the street, I realized, I said, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much for this platform.
Thank you.
And always constantly happy to always learn from you.
Thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it. Guys, so that's the end of another beautiful episode of the Billionaire Habit with me. Please get this episode across to people who are like second generation entrepreneurs. I think there's so much to learn. This session and that of Entrepreneurial is something I'm intentionally pushing because we need to we need to get right with wealth, right? The wealth ending at the first generation, is not right? We need it to be able to continue second, third, including even that they are not necessarily inheriting their parents' company, like in his own case. In Topper's case, he took the company forward from his dad. In your case, you totally have started your own business, outside of what your dad is doing. Your dad's business is doing well. You are growing yours as well. So people need to know it can be done here as well. And we need to end that circle where, the father started it, then by the time the children, everything is gone.
Right.
And so I hope this will inspire a lot of people. Have a great day. See you next episode. Bye-bye.